Here we are at the tail end of 2017, and it has been known by many people that are very connected to this particular ascension window period that the years of this ascension window are basically the year 2000 to 2017. Now, it doesn't mean that at the end of 2017, if you miss the bus, you're not going to get there. It just means that it's a heightened period for coming into a certain level of awareness and expanded consciousness that helps us to release ourselves from the control agendas and the patriarchal agendas that have basically been limiting humanity for thousands of years. This is a time where we understand what it means to return to the mother, that aspect that is in the cosmos, what this planetary consciousness is made of, and something that exists within our own divine blueprint and DNA potential. And what's amazing about this time is, as much as there's difficult truths to assimilate, it's helping to steer us into the awareness of the unconditional love of the mother and how she has never, ever abandoned us, and she never will. And that this whole planetary body is made from that love. And the powers of nature, the elements, the animals, the herbs, the plants, everything that makes up this planetary body is here to assist us in recognizing that that is our soul essence. What has been robbed from us in the greatest theft is our ability to unite as a collective, our ability to truly know what we're made of, and our ability to have harmonious and healthy relationships. This has been sort of the ultimate targeting. And so, as much as this difficult information is coming forward, the most important thing that we can do is recognize that the things that matter most to us, we need to reclaim. And so it's that boldness, it's that courage to say that no matter what we're hearing from the media, no matter what we read in the news, no matter what projections or memes or propagandas that are being shoved into our faces, that the true reality is going to appease our deepest soul longing. It'll help us to release ourselves from guilt and shame of the past or the regrets we might have about how we might have been able to do it different or what's wrong with us, why haven't we figured it out? And part of our ability to release ourselves from it is through understanding the level of infiltration and dark technologies that are rampant in our environment and have been impacting the earth grids for so many thousands of years that it becomes a multi-generational thing that is almost a part of our inheritance. And when we can look at what we've inherited or what conditions we fall into, adversities, afflictions, illness, and where we notice the imbalance within ourselves and with the relationships with one another, those are the key points that we need to pay attention to in order to create restoration of these organic timelines, which are ever present, but need us to be conduits of it by separating ourselves not from nature or source, but from the very things that threaten our ability to feel strong and confident in that connection. And the things that threaten that are a part of a greater program, a part of dark agendas of lower entities that stem from controller agendas that originate in our galactic history. There's been a lot of galactic wars, there have been rebellions, there have been attempts to steer us away from source so that the more negative ego-based constructs could use us as a food source. Because if any being decides to disconnect from source, they're going to need something else to feed on. And it's become so large that it has actually created the very structure of our society, when in actual fact, the very foundation of our society is our ability to come together as a human race in unity consciousness with an understanding of the impulses within us that want more. And when we become unconscious to it, it manifests as all sorts of, physical symptoms or life experiences that we may misunderstand. It might be a crisis we go through in our life connected to our job, our health, our relationships, our relationship with our own family. But those are all there to help remind us of what the message is. The thing is, because we're born with amnesia and we can't remember our galactic origins or our connection to true source, because we've been taught to relate more to either lower creator gods or the negation of it through atheism and maybe hedonism and a connection to a more negative belief system that can cause digression even if it has instant gratification. That's kind of the ramification of it all. When we can really see it for what it is, you know, it can help us to have a clearer picture of the fact that none of those parts of us are being ignored. It's not something that we're meant to be at a loss from. It's an initiation to help us get closer to it. And so I think one of the biggest things that I always try and express to people is that adversities, unwellness, disconnect, imbalance, the feeling of separation, the feeling of loneliness, the feeling of lack of community is a clear sign that you must be a pioneer to find those things. And sometimes it just comes from recognizing that it already exists within. And when we can ground that within ourselves, we have no choice but to begin to break those bonds, those cords, those connections with things that are either programmed by the old paradigm type energies or have the inclination to dig deep enough to understand that this isn't just our lack of awareness. This is a targeting. And what's organic is that this is what we know to be true. So things like depression, anxiety, fear, and anything that the physical body is trying to show us gets diverted into these negative ego constructs that uses that to their benefit. And this is a time of saying, I'm done with that relationship. I can step back and actually look at myself and listen to it and go into a silent space to understand what it's really trying to tell me, which is forming a deeper bond with who you really are, what the truth really is, and what people are going to have your back and join you in this greater expansion of consciousness. And so what's beautiful is that we're never alone. And I, even to this day, sometimes struggle with my own stuff, and I'm like, God, I feel really alone in this. And then I recognize, wow, well, clearly I'm not the only person going through it, but how can I drop the projection on myself that it's not appropriate to share it? And so I think if people have been listening to me for long enough, I don't have any issue just putting it out there. Whether it means that I create disappointment or somebody put me on a pedestal and I fall off of it, it doesn't matter. Or if somebody thought I am aligned with something negative, maybe they can see my deeper heart intention. And I think all of us face that in our everyday life. Here we are at the end of 2017. What's been so significant is that the sun has moved into the 13th sign since 2010. It doesn't mean that we all have to adjust our natal charts to be in accordance with this 13th sign called Ophiuchus. It just means that all souls born after 2010 carry a different energy that can help to bring us closer to the mother. It doesn't mean they have something that we don't. It just means that they hold an activation that can remind, because that's all we are really giving to each other, is that we're reminding each other of these things. And the problem with certain belief systems is that they're trying to bring a person into believing in something, when my whole path is about, you have to believe in yourself. And to believe in ourselves is to allow ourselves also to be nurtured by the Great Mother, who came into this planetary sphere and impregnated it with a 13-dimensional potential that actually links to the 0-point energy and the neutron window that connects with the 7 higher heavens, which allows our chakras to experience way more than it is in this distorted planetary logos, which relates to the 7 chakra system. So when we look at the goddess energy or the divine feminine going through the underworld, she's actually going through all these different gates of those 7 chakras. to be able to move past the distortions and bust the gatekeepers and recognize that the only way out of the underworld is to tell Hades to go take a hike and to rise in that power and recognize that the Christ consciousness is penetrating the womb of the mother, creating a reality that we've all longed for, you know? And it doesn't mean that everybody's there. It doesn't mean that everybody wants it, but we do not need to live at the expense of those who choose to not wake up. Sometimes I think we all feel like whatever we see on the world stage, or the conditions of where the planetary body is, the consciousness of humanity and what they're aligning ourselves with, are going to stop us or prevent us from being able to get there. But this is where we're sovereign. And this is where we get to say, I'm a human vessel that's advancing itself. We can allow our creative channels to align with our greatest visions and dreams. We have access to the ultimate creativity. That's what the universe is. It's vast. We can pick and choose pretty much any belief system. But it's what our bodies tell us. It's what our bodies are in resonance with that is going to guide us into a place that nurtures our healing and transformation. And if we choose a belief system that isn't on par with that, that's why we tend to not feel well, or we tend to feel at the mercy of things outside of us. What is on the news? What does the doctor tell us? We might feel depression. We might feel anger. We might feel disconnect. Does that mean we take pharmaceuticals, or does it mean that we stand strong in what that deeper soul longing is and tell ourselves that if that's the road we're looking for, trust it? That's part of the unconditional love of the mother. It doesn't mean that we're just going to go wild and free and not think about integrity. It means that to be a part of the mother's energy is to be aligned with cosmic laws and natural laws. Because thinking that we have all the freedom in the world can also create the very same thing as repression or control. Sometimes it deviates from integrity because we might choose the path of rebellion. And as healthy as rebellion might be, to step away from the controls, we have to refine it within ourselves so that we remember that treating others the way we want to be treated is the most important thing. And it's almost sounds basic, but this is our greatest struggle. I mean, it amazes me when I look around at the architecture, the cities that have been built, the cars that have been built, our ability to create a functional system. But is that system really connected to nature? Does it really promote ascension? It might promote enslavement, but yet we still have these skills. When we can integrate spirit with these skills, we begin to understand how to work with nature, and we begin to understand like what the real priority is. I think sometimes people put on the back burner the importance of nurturing a sacred union connection within the self and with each other, because we have to go to work, we got to make money, we got to do this or that. But I don't think there's anything more important than figuring out a way to harmonize what's going on internally. Not only will it heal the self, it'll help you with healthy relationships. It'll help you to be who you are in community. And anytime you don't feel that you can be, instead of putting yourself as the underdog, look at yourself as, wait a second, this trigger matters. My boundaries matter. It doesn't have to be the same as everyone else, but if you honor it, you can be around a community that can appreciate your process without you needing to be anything but you. And control agendas disguise themselves in all sort of different ways. But the beauty is that we have to create space for ourselves to be able to go through the initiations. So there's 3 outer planets that relate to ascension: Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune. Everybody's got them in their chart. They serve a purpose. Pluto helps us to have death, rebirth, transformational experiences without actually losing the physical body. Uranus gives us the shocks and upheavals we need to be able to wake up. Neptune opens us up to illusion, but also the multidimensional nature of things, which is connected to our creative imagination. If we misunderstand these initiations and give our power away, then we're in sort of the reversal mode of what the true source creation energies are trying to offer us as we move through the precession of the equinox. We're in a time right now where we're in alignment with the galactic core. We're being given a lot of frequency downloads. At the same time, there's a lot of artificial intelligence signals coming in and a lot of attempts to steer humanity in the direction of transhumanism, which is basically going to take us on an artificial timeline. But the key right now is to say, I want to be sovereign. I want true love. What belief systems in me, what insecurities in me are keeping me from it, and to face them head on. It doesn't mean that we require perfection. It just means we require devotion. And if we understand the deeper stories connected to the goddess, it's not just for women, because that energy streams through men very profoundly. It's not about submitting to the male. It's about understanding, well, where does that connect with your own ego? Not to say that men are all ego and women are all love, but we have this energetic body that is connected to the earth grids. Those earth grids 26,000 years ago got infiltrated by dark technologies that separated the masculine and feminine. So through osmosis, we naturally are born into something where the scales are incredibly off. And we adopt those personas and we live them out, which creates adverse health or a connection to false light that makes us feel like we're thriving and makes us feel healthy only for so long, until we recognize that those things can be ripped away from us at any time. And if we don't have something to fall back on, if we don't know how to get through that dark night of the soul, and if we don't know how to be the birthers and creators, and we keep handing it to somebody else because we're being rewarded for buying into the programming, or we're being treated less than for not buying into it, where we become victims to it, then we're still way too plugged in. So the one thing that I always make a strong point of is that we win the war within. It's a war on consciousness with a history that is riddled with world wars, catastrophes, planetary explosions, holocausts, cataclysms that have left us all very fragmented. And if we look at the roots of all that, it happened a very long time ago in two different dimensional harmonic universes. The first one being Tiamat, the dragon queen, who is in perfect sacred union balance with Apsu in mythology. And then we step down to Maldek, where it's just the Orion Wars playing out. And how it downloaded into this physical experience as this new planetary body was formed. And when this new planetary body was formed, we sort of either decided or got caught up in needing to experience a dumbed down DNA to give us the opportunity to understand the right use of power. The right use of power has to come through experience, though, because it's just like a kid growing up. How can I convince my mom to give me a bunch of candy? How can I, run off and do whatever I want? Well, there is some sort of parental force there that might be like, no, I don't want to give that to you. No, you can't have that. No, that's not healthy. But at the end of the day, a lot of times the scenario is, well, let me do it and let me fall on my face and experience the detrimental effects, and then maybe there'll be change. So we've been in a very infantile state when our DNA got dumbed down, but a lot of us have memories of what it was like to have full capacity as multidimensional beings. There were different stages of the seeding of the human race, so we're all sort of at different levels. But the thing is, even if somebody doesn't have those memories, the role of people that are awakened is to help activate. And there's a fine line between how you assist one in activating themselves versus trying to shove something down their throat that they might not be ready for. And we all have to navigate that. It's a work in progress. But the most important thing is that we start to embrace the medicine of this earth, herbs, organic, healthy, clean food, even though that's a little bit difficult when there's things being sprayed in our sky. But even animals, I mean, they're part of our soul essence. And so when we look at the greater alchemy going on with the mother force returning, helping to offer that ether energy that helps to penetrate this planetary body with the essence of spirit, which can create miracles, healing, transformation. We have to give ourselves that gift so that we can radiate that out to others that might be steered into an artificial agenda or a timeline. The best thing that we can do is understand that we all have a unique purpose, and being able to embody this or accept this, surrender to this. And it's not like a burden. It's not a responsibility. It's going to give you joy. It's going to give you elation. It's going to show you what bliss really means. The fact is, we're empathic, we're compassionate. And so sometimes we carry the weight of so much around us, and we want to change it through our own bodies. But when we start to connect with our galactic chakras and we start to download it into our other chakra system, we begin to radiate energies that can activate people versus taking it on and feeling weighed down. And everything going on in the cosmos is giving us exactly what we need. We just have to stay clear of the things that try and cause us a misunderstanding about what that is. Because it's not about something having mercy on us and saving us, although there are a lot of higher dimensional beings that are here to help. But they're just as much real as us choosing to not trash ourselves through negative patterning, negative addictions, negative relationships, and opening ourselves up to the benevolent aspects of what's already ingrained in our human vessel, which is an immune system and advanced DNA that is waiting for us to tap into it. And during this period that we're in, we are a lot closer to being able to feel that. And that is why these dark forces are doing anything they can to say, how do we distract them? How do we make them forget that? Because they feel very weakened by it. It's like kryptonite to them. And so all we have to do is say, I'm cutting the ties. And dropping the fear about, will I be able to feed myself? Will I be able to pay the bills? Because the thing is, when you step into your mission and your divine purpose, there's something that envelops you. There's something that takes care of you. There's something that makes sure, even if you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, you will be taken care of. Those that choose to divert themselves from it, that might be dropped from it, they have to face the dark night of the soul. And it's a very scary place to be, but nobody is void from the opportunity to find that inner light. Sometimes that's what it takes. I mean, I spent 20-something years in the underworld, and I still go there time and time again. And it can feel very lonely, and it can bring up a lot of questions. And sometimes you just want a quick fix to make that feeling go away, because we're not used to our own natural state and our abilities. But the only reason that I really embraced it and saw it as the biggest deal that I could possibly enter into versus giving my power away and letting somebody else tell me where my future is going to go is because I knew the only way that I could transform was to go into the trenches, to recognize that I can decorate the trenches with my wisdom, with my devotion, with my love, with my concern, with my compassion, with my drive, my willpower, to pierce through that, which is how we pierce through the net and this quarantine that we've been in. It's all connected, the micro and macro. And I think sometimes people don't feel they have enough of a purpose, or if they were to let go of the things that they're doing that they don't really like, they're going to be abandoned. But there's nothing more powerful than this planetary body and her unconditional love. And it's open to all beings, even the most evil and dark. But just like with a child or anybody, in order to be able to get there, there needs to be correction. It's not about punishment, it's about correction. So what does it take to have correction? A person might need to go through something to help open their eyes to maybe something they did to another person or something they don't fully understand, to make it more real to themselves. Like I noticed with a lot of my clients, they're like, well, none of this really matters until it hits close to home. And I noticed with a lot of people I was connecting with, or even people that give me feedback on some of my videos, it's not going to really affect them until it hits close to home, unless it's their mother, their sister, their boyfriend. Otherwise, it's like they're living in their little bubble. But we have to say we're a much larger family than this. We need to listen to each other's stories. We need to pay attention to it, because why wait till it hits home? Similar to why wait till this certain behavior leads to disease? Why do we have to wait till we're on the threshold of death or destruction to get it? And perhaps that's the formula that humans need to go by. But the important thing is that they know if they need to get themselves to that point, that they will be lifted up and they can rise from it. It's part of our soul architecture. You redeem the energies of Satanism and Luciferianism just by being born into it is by willing to go into that darkness and work with your shadow, versus denying it's there and being controlled by it. And when we can face it, of course it's uncomfortable. Of course it's going to test us. But there's no greater journey than that. Because when we can find our own inner light in the darkness, we begin to recognize our divine template, the balance of the masculine and feminine, and the dark void that got created out of the imbalance. But also the womb that emerged that births our thought forms. But the thing is, we can't just create thought forms and expect it to sustain us, because there are real laws out there that have nothing to do with the judicial systems, patriarchy, or anything else. It has to do with what does the law of your body need from you right now to be healthy. And it'll sustain wherever you are in your soul growth if you can give it that respect. Doesn't mean it's going to be exactly where somebody else is at. But basically, that's authenticity. Authenticity is recognizing your own inner elements. You might have fire energy that's angry. Flip it over. What's your passion? You might have physical ailments that are very similar to this earth body we're on, where it feels depleted. There's extinction. There's issues with some of the organs or this or that. Our air energy. There might be mind control that we're still processing or not understanding. We're still following that particular mindset that might make us feel uncomfortable, but we have no choice. What's the other side of it? Free thinking, liberation of the mind. What is your story that you want to write? And then we have water. Where are our waters contaminated? Which is a huge part of who we are. Where do we feel contaminated to the point where we've given up on ourselves? And we can only feel a sense of hope based on what is said in the news or what's going on, like from one day to the next, or where we're stuck in feeling victimized versus empowered because we can let go of certain dreams to maybe be open to better ones for ourselves. So we need to go through a purification process for our water energy too. All these elementals need attention. And the one thing that contaminates us most is when we buy into these negative ego constructs, which basically have played such a huge role in our society, religion, politics, media, government. When we can step back and say, I want to purify this, and we choose to purify our inner elements, the earth has no choice but to respond. And when the earth responds, we start to ascend. And it's not some fluffy belief system, it's actually what we're made of. And so now that we've gone through this sun through a Theicus, which represents the element of the ether, we start to get that fire water energy back. Basically, every zodiac sign is ruled by either earth, air, fire, or water. Ophiuchus is the first sign to be actually ruled by the ether. So that kind of completes the cycle. We're in this ascension window period. The mother energy is grounded back into the planet. It's been too traumatizing for her to actually be able to be fully grounded into the planet, let alone all of us being fully grounded. When this happened, this has given us the opportunity to turn everything around. Dark agendas have purposely manipulated sacred geometries, particularly the dodecahedron, which relates to the ether, and thought that when I talk about control agendas, I'm talking about fallen angelics, lower entities, reptilian, draconians, not all reptilians, negative factions of the Anunnaki that relate to the Luciferian rebellions, that are behind some of these dark technologies. Anyway, so this contamination of the elements and how it is symbolized with the reversal of the pentagram and some of these other platonic solids that aren't the pentagram, but each element represents a certain platonic solid. With our connection to the mother again, we can start to recognize that spirit holds dominion over nature, ourselves. And it always has. The design of nature, though, is to guide us and help us to remember that all these different things happen within us. Death, decay, regeneration, all these different animal spirits, all the different herbs that can take care of us and heal us from just about anything. And as we step into this greater alchemy that's already available on a cosmic level, it clears and neutralizes implants, negative technologies, and everything else. Because we've been in this frequency battle where a belief system that we adopt can override our own sense of common sense and even our own sense of soul. And so all we need to do is just say, I don't really need to learn anything here. I just need to be me. Because when we can just be ourselves, we can start to work through all those different elemental imbalances. But how can we possibly work through them if we put them in denial, or we say that it's not enlightenment to feel what we're feeling? The more that we can embrace it, the more we can release it. And that purification process is so important right now because it opens up our channels for something greater to come in, which means that as much as you're thinking and processing, here comes this incredible force that's just going to clean it and completely lift you out of it. These higher earth energies are a part of the multidimensional body of this planetary system, this Gaia that we're on. So sometimes we think we need to save the planet. If we really want to save the planet, we need to look at ourselves. Where are we buying into the mind control? Where have we given our power away? Where are we losing ourselves to a belief about what the future holds? And we see in a lot of movies, a lot of scenarios that could play out in the future. We see a lot of things in the news, a lot of false flags that are real. People do get hurt, but they're trying to steer us into a mindset that sabotages our ability to use our creative powers to create a whole new scenario. And the most important thing, I think, is to allow yourself the process, to allow yourself to be human and don't deny it, but recognize that a lot of the stages of that along the way aren't the reality that you're going to be stuck in. It's a prerequisite to you recognizing your ability to change it. And when you can recognize that, you're standing in your power, you're recognizing who you are as an authentic sovereign being, which I believe is a prerequisite to true unity consciousness. Because how can we all come together as a whole if we're holding on to these programs, if we're feeling competition and war, or because we have differing belief systems about anything that we're hearing now or that we've been taught, that we can't accept that and still feel into the vibration of family or unity. It's a lot about letting go of the ego, but not negating the ego as being bad. It's about informing your ego from your higher self that has got a much greater purpose. And when we can allow that energy to move through the physicality or the old paradigm ways of being a person of ego, whether it's a wounded ego or an elevated, arrogant ego, and you find that center point, that's when you are stepping into a dormant DNA strand that's ready to become awakened. Because really, our DNA holds a love story. It holds the whole series of that process of disconnect, and then that marriage of the masculine and feminine on an alchemical level until it moves into Hyros Gamos. Now, when we start to move beyond the seventh chakra, that's when we start to get really attacked. Because beyond the seventh chakra, when we move into like eighth or ninth, that's the energies of ascension. That's when the core of Andromeda and Milky Way become one. And it's also where we start to get in touch with the energetic of infinity, the infinity spiral. The number 8 is what it looks like, which is connected to Saturn. So we look at these lords of Saturn or the old paradigm that's connected to Saturn. Well, that's a lower octave of Saturn. Every planetary body has octaves. Saturn on its lowest octave is control, domination. But when you can recognize a higher form of something like Saturn, you begin to get responsible to yourself. You begin to understand that the path of Saturn is trial and tribulation, where sometimes we give ourselves over to control so somebody can tell us what to do, or we rebel against it and either lose our way or get to the next level. But the highest level of Saturn is mastery and being a teacher. If we look at the higher octaves of the moon, because we know the lunar energy, the moon has an artificial component where there's a lot of control and distortion. When we can recognize some of these greater levels of the lunar energy, which are basically Uranus and Neptune, we can develop our intuition, we can step into our multidimensional awareness and feel on an empathic level without taking the burden or weight of the world on our shoulders. The lunar energy, though, is like, the reason that alone doesn't work is we either take it all on and get depressed or feel like it's going to sink us or kill us, or we take it so personally that we don't really understand what is required of us to help elevate it to a greater energy. It's all part of these different octaves and levels because it's all sort of water energy. And that's why Uranus is associated with Aquarius, which is, the water bearer, but yet it's the highest vibration of electrical energy that comes in to stimulate your nervous system into a level of truth, which blasts all the contaminated waters away from whatever it is we're carrying. And as we know, we're like 70% water. The Neptune energy brings us into a more vastness, like, okay, you're the painter here, you're the scriptwriter. Do you want to change this dialogue? Versus feeling everything, feeling limited by it, and being stuck in sort of those mother issues. I mean, the thing is, we're born into biological families, and we're sort of a product of how we are raised, how we think about ourselves, how we relate to others based on maybe what we saw from our father and mother, what their relationship was. And with all forgiveness and unconditional love towards them, we have this greater parent, mother, father, and it's a part of our divine template. It's about understanding it's around you. It's a part of physical matter that surrounds us. It's a part of the earth grids. And even though they've been messed with, it's only to keep us from recognizing it. We can create that unmess by reminding ourselves that we have that to fall back on. And it's not just something to strive for as a personality trait. It's something to embrace and surrender to so that it can begin to illuminate that incredible divine blueprint. Another great thing about where we are right now is that the ascension timeline has moved from the Melchizedek hosting, which has been there for thousands and thousands of years, and it's now being hosted by the goddess energy herself. It's an override frequency that can clear all of this. And it's not just women, it's men. It's a part of our whole energetic body. And the beauty of it right now is this is all coming online. This is becoming more available to people. And as we purge out the dark and the difficult, we have something that is beaming nothing but love for us. We don't need to seek it. We need to connect with it within. We need to know that if we drop the negative ego, the fears about our survival, are we going to have enough money to pay our rent? Are we going to have enough money to pay our bills? If we can let go of those fears and still step up to the plate to do the best we can in a physical vessel, but we let go and understand that something else has really got our back and has for so long, who has been okay being a part of this experience with us, so that she can penetrate all souls through the depths of physical matter, up through the earth, because it's seated in the core of this planet. While it's also a cosmic mother that comes in through our crown and all these other galactic chakras. And that full-on integration is a reunion with the great mother, the Christ consciousness, the Father God that got all distorted into these false archetypes of tyranny and patriarchy. And when we can recognize that connection, just like if we had those so-called perfect parents or unconditionally loving parents, we would maybe thrive more. So we don't need those stories anymore. All we need to know is that this is the reality. we have a much greater connection to something so much greater that we can teach our own parents. We can teach our ancestral lines going all the way back from the beginning, and ancestral lines that we might never have incarnated into, because this is unity. And we can affect future timelines by setting a new standard that doesn't submit to anything other than what we're made of and what our divinity is. And again, not all souls are ready for this. And that's why there's a bit of a bifurcation happening. But from my estimation and where we are today with the pedophile rings being busted and people really not being able to escape this news that's coming out about what's been really going on, we're in a big rehabilitation process. And we all need to come together and recognize that those aren't sheeple. Those are well-intentioned people that invested their lives into something. They didn't know better. Maybe they weren't willing to dig. It doesn't matter. We were. And that's our gift to them. It's not for us to separate ourselves from them. And we need to feed those souls and bring them into alignment with us, because it's traumatizing. I mean, we are all traumatized. There's different versions of trauma. So the more we can recognize true unity without, oh, you're this or you're that, and step out of maybe a different way of expressing an old paradigm with different languaging that seems elevated, we need to break those barriers and just see the love and see the light and see the goodness in so many, beings that are here, and recognize that our way of upgrading DNA is not about getting complicated with the numbers and the dimensions and what are stargates and what's going on with the earth grids. It's about divorcing the imposter and stepping into authentic true love and being willing to drop the things that don't see you, don't honor you, or don't have compassion for your process, and knowing that there's so many of us out there that accept you for who you are right now, right here, because beneath all that, you're everywhere you need to be. And it's just about helping each other to rediscover what's already innate and what's already been seeded in who we are in connection with the movement of this physical planet into a higher earth energy.